To your point real quick about content, I think a lot of people get stuck on, they're like, what will I create content about? I'm not an expert.
Exactly.
And I think you're exactly right. I can't remember who said this. I wish I could credit them, but you can approach content in like two different ways. One is as the generous expert.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm an expert and I'm just sharing this with you for free. And the other one is the curious beginner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very easy for anybody to start as the curious beginner and to say, hey, I'm going to try to get in shape. Come with me on my journey, you know? And then at one point, if you do it long enough, you become the expert.
Welcome to the Zero Quit Podcast, where we bring you inside the minds of elite athletes, business owners, specialists, and other creatives. I'm your host, Covington, and through these conversations, you'll hear practical advice and effective strategies for optimizing not only your performance, but also your habits and routines as well. If you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe and share it with a friend. What's going on, guys? So today I have the pleasure of having on another fellow Brock, which is always, a rare sighting, but I have on Brock McGoff. He is an entrepreneur of many different blogs and businesses, including his prominent blog, The Modest Man, where he offers advice, guidance in regards to men's fashion style and so forth. His work has been featured in Esquire, Men's Health, and other publications. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to another Brock.
Yeah, it's the few and far between, or the what's like the saying that the few, the proud, the Marine. We'll steal a little bit of that vibe. But it's funny, we actually got to know each other because I believe you reached out to me back in 2020 when you were coincidentally moving to Richmond real briefly, which is where I'm from. And, it was nice to kind of connect and also see how much things have kind of changed and developed and grown in both of our lives since then. Of course, the pandemic was like a very, strange time where some things flourished and some things stalled. But I appreciate, connecting again with you because, like I said, things have changed, and I really enjoyed our conversation and took a good bit from it as far as, like, the power of these passive income sources, the power of delegation, and how you can kind of really build these stable, long-term sources of income. And I don't know, I took a lot of inspiration from it, so I appreciate you again taking the time.
Absolutely, yeah. It was kind of funny how I think I saw you on the 10,000, the athletic brand, like their ambassador page, which oddly enough I was on there too, even though I'm very much not like really an athlete. And then I saw you were in Richmond and we connected. It was an odd time because it was just like mid-pandemic. I think my wife had just gotten pregnant, and so we were really being safe. So we didn't get to hang out that much, but it was nice to connect.
Yeah. It's always good to connect over a bagel and coffee, right? But I want to start off a little bit with your origin story, hit you with an easy question, kind of what got you into blogging in the first place? Because I feel like, at least from the outside perspective, that's where everything kind of started from you and what blossomed into everything else that you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I got interested in content sites, affiliate marketing, I guess you can call it blogging.
Yeah.
In like 2012 maybe, and that was before influencers were a thing. It wasn't even really a word. So like social media obviously was around, but it wasn't as popular. YouTube was around, but also not as big. There was no TikTok. So blogs were very much like a viable thing to start if you wanted to build an audience online. So I was just working in a regular job out of college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I had read probably like so many people who will listen to this 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of got me. I was just fascinated by the idea of location independent income and then separating your time from your money, so passive income. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of like learning about affiliate marketing, content sites, WordPress, SEO. And at the same time, I was sort of developing a little bit of an interest in menswear and learning how to dress a little better because I looked very young and I was working in sort of a corporate job, and I started to understand that I think my clothes were probably not working for me. And so my interest in that, and then my interest in blogging kind of converged with The Modest Man.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to pick out of that. But one thing that I liked that you mentioned, I had a conversation with someone, I think it was 2 days ago, was about, a lot of times people don't know where to start with creating content. And a lot of times the best content you can create is through your passions. Like, as simple as it is, you don't have to be an expert in fashion. Like, you didn't go to school for it sounds like. I didn't, overly specialize in, I went to school for exercise science and things like that. But a lot of things I do or talk about, I go to school for, I'm not an expert in, but it's through passion and, sharing what you learn. So kind of like a lot of, where you kind of started, it sounds like, was through as you're learning, sharing that with others. And over time, you obviously kind of develop more of an expertise and familiarity with the topic, but just allowing that passion to lead to creation, I feel like is the best route to go. And like you mentioned, the 4-hour work week, I haven't read it, but I did listen to a lot of the vast majority of it on audiobook years ago. And it kind of hit me the same way, thinking about how time is so finite, right? Like if you want to make money and your money is tied to your time, you're going to be, pretty much limited, right? And, that was something that definitely helped me make the easier decision to quit personal training and go into more of the freelance work I was doing, because obviously when you're an entrepreneur, you decide your rate, so you can decide your hourly rate, and that can definitely help, because if you do have that finite time, well, you can't always work more, but you can make more by, dictating your rate. But I like that you emphasize the power of passive income. So you start the blog. Yeah, go ahead. No, jump in.
To your point real quick about content, I think a lot of people get stuck on, they're like, what will I create content about? I'm not an expert.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you're exactly right. I can't remember who said this. I wish I could credit them, but you can approach content in like 2 different ways. One is as the generous expert. Mm-hmm. So I'm an expert and I'm just sharing this with you for free. And the other one is the curious beginner. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very easy for anybody to start as the curious beginner and to say, hey, I'm going to try to get in shape. Come with me on my journey, know? And then at one point, if you do it long enough, you become the expert.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of transitioned to that over time, even though, if you just look at the world of fashion, like I'm by no means a fashion expert, but I know more than most guys, Mm. And so I think anybody can start. And just like you said, it's really more about what you're interested in, not what you're necessarily an expert in.
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote this down a while ago because I want to write I'm transitioning a lot of my content to try and have, the shorter form on Instagram, but also have like longer form written content. And one thing I really want to write about is what I just coined as like the beginner's paradox. And it's basically what you talked about, where as a beginner, you feel like you're not allowed to talk about something because you don't know enough about it. But then the truth is you never feel like you know enough, or you're not going to be able to become an expert unless you talk about it. Like by teaching others, by creating, that leads to expertise, right? So if you get stuck at that, point of, well, I'm a beginner, I can't talk about this, then you're kind of just stuck at that point. And you just nailed it. It's like I've been getting into more Western philosophy and reading that the past 6-8 months, and I really want to take more of a turn of adding more of that into content I produce, more of the lessons I learn into applying philosophy into life. And a lot of times, I kind of get stuck in my own headspace of, well, I'm not an expert. People are going to think I'm like, acting like I'm smarter, bigger than I am. But it's through forcing myself to, teach others, to put things into practice, that's going to make me a more vibrant, reader and more vibrant thinker, I think, overall. So I like that you also vibe with that same kind of concept and that almost imposter syndrome in some contexts.
Totally.
So with you start with The Modest Man, that becomes your first blog. I guess what was like the next big monumental steps that led to, I know you have, I don't want to butcher the name. Is it The Slender Wrist? Is that the other?
Yeah, The Slender Wrist.
Okay, so you have that. You obviously branched off into The Modest Man YouTube as well, and other blogs and other businesses I want to get into in a little bit. But I guess walk you through like the next kind of big steps that kind of walked you down that path.
Yeah, I think the next big step was starting the YouTube channel, and menswear YouTube or men's fashion YouTube was becoming more popular. I mean, the subject matter is inherently visual, so it kind of makes sense to be on a visual platform versus, a blog can be very visual, but it's also really made for someone who wants to sit down and read, a long form article. And so I kind of met a couple people who were video first creators and they were doing really well and decided to jump into YouTube. Huge learning curve, and sort of a more of a barrier to entry, especially back then. Now you can basically use your phone and make a pretty good video, especially if you're doing shorts. But it was tough for me to get into YouTube. I'm not like, I don't love being in front of the camera. I'm more comfortable behind it, you know?
Yeah.
But that was kind of the next big thing. And it took a while, but did see some traction on YouTube, which was really rewarding and encouraging to keep going. And over the next few years, my, effort between the website and YouTube kind of waxed and waned. I think social media, including YouTube, is really addictive because there's these metrics on there that are sort of vanity metrics, like how many followers you have.
Yeah.
And if you're really just focused on like business revenue, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But when a video does well, or when you get a bunch of subscribers in a month, it feels good, But when I really kind of went heavy on YouTube for a couple of years, and then I took a step back and I said, most of the revenue is still coming from the website.
Yeah.
So I really have to focus on that because that's the more important, piece of property that I have in this business. And that's kind of what led me to eventually buy theslenderist.com to add another piece to the portfolio.
Yeah. So, you mentioned that the website is the biggest driver. How did you really gain an audience? Because obviously YouTube has kind of an algorithm that's set up in a way that, things can go viral, get searched, things like that. And I guess Google has the same way with SEO, but I guess how did you approach SEO and gaining that kind of traction with the website?
Yeah, I mean, it really is all SEO for the website, and it still is to this day. And I've tried other things. Like I've tried every social media platform, and it's not that you can't get significant traffic from social media, but I haven't been able to crack that code really. So for me, it's been really diving deep into search engine optimization. And, I think a lot of people would hear that and think like, oh, that sounds terrible. It's so boring. I don't want to hear, I don't want to learn about that. But I was fascinated by it. I mean, I think the idea that you can start a business with literally nothing, $10 to get a domain name, and then learn about SEO for free on the internet, and then start publishing content and getting traffic for free and then monetizing that. I mean, that's just something you couldn't do 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was really fascinated by that. And so for me, learning about SEO, it was kind of fun. And it's still kind of the bedrock of my business is producing content that gets organic traffic from Google.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to ask too, like, do you feel that blogs and, or however you want to, I guess, term your website still has the same power and traction as it does today? Obviously yours does, but what I'm saying is, like, if you were to start something from scratch, right, would you go about it the same way today, or would you try and leverage some of these other platforms more? Because, like, for example, like, what are your thoughts on platforms like Substack and things like that? Because that seems to be almost a form of, you can run it like a blog, but it's also still connected to where people can find you through that platform.
Yeah, I don't think I think they're all lucrative.
Yeah.
So, I think it's
no right
it's
or wrong,
tempting, and you hear this all the time, like, oh, blogs are dead, or,
Yeah.
people said newsletters and email was dead, and now
Yeah.
it's back. So, YouTube's not going anywhere, even though TikTok has a lot of market share now. So I think they're all lucrative. If I were deciding on what to do right now, if I was starting from scratch, I would think about my strengths and what I enjoyed doing versus what's the most lucrative platform. Like, if you hate writing, you shouldn't start a blog, and if you really hate being in front of the camera, you probably shouldn't start a TikTok. So it kind of depends on what you're going to realistically do for a long time, because no matter which platform you choose, it's not a get rich quick thing. Like, it's going to take a long time. You're going to have to create hundreds or thousands of pieces of content and kind of outlast the competition. That's like 90% of the battle.
Yeah. So transitioning back to a little bit of, I guess, some of your bread and butter with men's fashion, what, I guess, you touched on a little bit, but maybe you could expand more upon what inspired you and drew you into men's fashion, and I guess, like, what excites you about it. And I wonder, after doing it for, about a decade at this point, does it still excite you the same way with creating different, videos on the topics and the different trends that come through?
I think why I like men's fashion as a niche is because, for me, it's not really about, like, fashion. Like, I've never been to New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
I don't go to runway shows. I don't really follow designers. To me, like, dressing well, or I guess your appearance, which is like your clothes and your grooming and your physique, it's kind of like one branch on the tree of, you know, self-improvement or personal development. And I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit because it's a lot easier to change your outfit than to change your physique, for example. And anybody can do it, you know, and it like we maybe don't like it, but the fact is people judge us by our appearance immediately, especially strangers. Now once you get to know somebody, maybe it doesn't matter what you wear, but even the people, you know, your family and your spouse and everybody is kind of looking at you, and they have that first impression. So I'm just kind of fascinated that like it's something that's within our control that can affect our self-image and how other people view us. So why not like leverage it? It's not that hard to learn, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I like that you touched on kind of the purpose and meaning behind it, because like you said, it is more of like a self-improvement thing. And I think it's kind of silly, you know, I want to get your thoughts on how fashion, and men's fashion specifically, how it's either like perceived with masculinity or your like thoughts on the matter, just because I think a lot of times, right, fashion or appearance even can get like pushed towards, oh, that's like more of a like a feminine interest or things like that. And I think that's like quite ignorant and foolish, because just as much as, you know, strength isn't mutually exclusive to men, obviously there's like strong women and value in men, you know, training in the gym and being strength. There's also tons of value for self-improvement and just development, coming from taking attention to your hygiene, how you present yourself. You know, that complete picture of being a man, I think, involves a sense of caring about your appearance.
Yeah, I mean, men have always cared. Everybody cares. You know, I think guys that say they don't care, you know, we're all sending a message, and if your message is "I don't care," well, then that's the message you're sending. You know, but either way, and I think that's kind of a not the best message, because when I see a guy in, you know, baggy cargo shorts and a graphic T-shirt and like totally like utilitarian shoes and like no effort in their haircut. Well, it's like, is that really the message you want to send to the world? Because you spent the same time getting dressed as I did today, you know?
It's a lack of effort, and almost in a sense, whether they perceive it as this or not, it's a lack of self-respect. It's the same way I perceive people that are, you know, disinterested completely in exercise, or even like demonize it as like, you know, oh, these are meatheads or self-absorbed people. But it's like there's nothing, you know, I think everyone should love themselves enough to care about their appearance, to care about their health, to want to better themselves. And like you said, if it's something as simple as changing your outfit can improve your attitude toward yourself, can improve people's perception of you, I think claiming that, oh, I don't care what people think about you is just a, you know, you're lying to yourself in an ignorant way to approach it, right?
I agree, yeah. And also, I mean, I understand that it can be uncomfortable, especially depending on what community you're a part of. It can be uncomfortable to, you know, put on a more fitted pair of jeans or wear a nicer pair of shoes or get a haircut, you know. But in my experience, most of the people, like if your friends sort of, you know, give you a little flack for doing something like that, 6 months later, they're asking you for help buying their wedding suit. So, and it feels good the first time. Like I remember the first time putting on a pair of jeans that like really fit, and I was like, man, like I look good. Like it felt really good. So I think it's, if you can get through that discomfort, it is pretty rewarding.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, you had the Modest Man YouTube channel for a long time now. You've been producing content generally for that for a while. I wonder, how do you approach making sure you're not just regurgitating the same tips or ideas? Because I think, okay, fashion does change over time. And, you know, I think about this a lot, even from my perspective with fitness, that fitness changes a lot, but the more that the internet has been out here, all the information a lot of times is out there. Like certain ways you should maybe, how you should approach jeans, right? How they should fit. Different ways that you should style a suit. Some of these things are more, I feel like, principles that are already presented that aren't going to change for the most part. So how do you go about, I guess, constantly trying to reinvent content and keep things interesting, if that makes sense?
I think there's just an endless well of content ideas. And, you know, one example, like in pretty much any niche, there's the product review, you know, or the brand review. Now, there's always a new product or a brand to review. When it comes to like more evergreen content, topics that have been covered a million times, I sort of look at something and say, can I do that better or differently than than everybody else has done it. Because really the fact of the matter is, like, if you have an audience, they're following you, so they want to know what you think about this trend or what you think about wearing a blue suit, not just not what Google says about it, whatever's the top search result. So I think just because something's been done doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Even if you've already covered something doesn't mean you shouldn't cover it again. Maybe your production has been better. Maybe your ideas about a topic has changed. So I'll repeat stuff. I'll borrow from other channels. I have a list of ideas on my notes app, and it's I'll never
Endless.
get through it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good problem to have. So pivoting a little bit, you in the past, I believe you're no longer involved from like our last conversation, but you can tell me if I'm incorrect. But you founded Peter Manning, right? Co-founder.
Yeah, I
I
was a co-owner,
okay.
and worked there for about a year and a half.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I guess in that brief time that you were with the company, what did you get out of being involved hands-on with a clothing company? And I guess like what setbacks or lessons did you take away from that experience?
I mean, it was interesting, after working on, I guess, like the publisher side, like kind of the content side, which is when you're a content creator, or call it an influencer or a blogger, you're one marketing arm for brands, basically. Like you fall into their content marketing budget or their influencer marketing budget. So I'm intimately familiar with working with brands in that way. I had never worked inside an e-commerce company or an apparel company, so it was really interesting to be on the inside and kind of see what it's like to work with publishers and content creators as the brand.
Yeah, be on the other side.
That was right, yeah, because you're looking at like budgets from the other side of the equation and everything like that, and you're kind of looking at ROI from the other side of the equation. So that was really interesting. It was a lot of fun to kind of apply what I've learned about creating content to a brand. It's definitely rewarding to create content to sell a product versus just to get views and then monetize the views. It's almost like a more straightforward business, because you're saying, I'm going to create this video and we're trying to sell jeans with this video. We're not just trying to get views and then make money off of ads. So the whole thing was really fascinating. I would be interested in maybe working in e-commerce again. I'm not sure about menswear. It's a really tough product because there's so many, a lot of returns, lots of SKUs between all the sizes and colors.
That's what I remember you telling me was the most difficult part was there's so many different SKUs as far as sizing, colors, products, and it's just very difficult to kind of keep up with and keep inventory. Yeah,
and men don't shop that much. Like it's a bit of a tough sell to get guys to buy clothes. So if I was looking at it just purely from a business perspective, I'm not sure menswear would be my first choice for an e-commerce company.
So one really interesting aspect about you that I remember you I think you mentioned it to me when we talked about it, and I was reviewing it a couple of days ago as preparing for this podcast, was you post very openly about your income and detail it on your fulltimeblog.com and go through that. So what, I guess, inspired you to do so, and how'd you get into doing that, basically?
Yeah, I think the income report was a bit of a trend in like the 2010 to like 2016 era. The kind of like transparency in blogging or online business. I remember there was a blog, there's still a website called Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn, and he was kind of the first one doing these income reports. And it was fascinating because, first of all, you get to see how websites make money, but also it was like, I don't know, it was like someone pulling their pants down in public, just like, wow, this guy's just sharing this. Yeah. And I thought it was, I don't know, I was just so intrigued by it for a lot of reasons. And I saw a food blog doing the same thing, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting to do that in like the fashion blogging world, because no one's doing that, and it's a very opaque industry. Like most people, when they go to a website, they have no idea that the website's making money off of them. Yeah. And so I started doing it. I also had the idea that one day, I could sort of have a separate business in full-time blog, helping other bloggers make money. And there's a million websites like that. A lot of them are very kind of scammy in that they've never actually
done it,
built anything else, right? They've never done it, so they're
like life coaches, right? That are like 20 years old, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what do you know about life?
Yeah.
You know? It's like selling shovels in a gold rush, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, it's never been, I still think there's maybe a course for like fashion influencers or something to start their blogs and to build more passive income, learn SEO. I've never actually done that because I'm too busy running the actual, the actual business. So I still think there's some potential there, but it's always been sort of on the back burner.
Yeah, I feel like it's tough because, I'm sure you're the same way. Obviously, it sounds like you just have so many different ideas and routes you could go with things, but sometimes you have your hands in too many pots that, the main sources that need attention get ignored, right? Or don't get the adequate attention. Since starting that, though, and analyzing your income and those reports on a quarterly basis, what, I guess, takeaways have you learned about yourself from them? And I guess, have you made any specific changes or emphasize certain aspects? For example, I know affiliate marketing obviously is a big, pull of income. Did you notice that early on and pivot more towards that, or?
Yeah, I mean, producing the income reports really forced me to really do a deep dive into the books, every month. And, I have a very clean profit and loss now, and I really understand the numbers in a way that I didn't when I was first getting started. So I did intentionally make affiliate marketing a bigger piece of the pie. I noticed that ad revenue was sort of taking over as the sole revenue stream, and I wanted to diversify. So probably maybe 2 years ago, I decided to publish more content that would help drive affiliate revenue, and it worked. And now affiliate has overtaken display ad revenue. So now I have to sort of dial it back in the other direction. But I think it's a really good idea, no matter what kind of business you have, to at least once a month do a really deep dive, go into all your bank statements and put together your own profit and loss. And for me, that's what the income reports did, because I was sort of publicly accountable to put them together.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like whenever you're putting something out there, you want to make sure you're on point, know what you're doing, know what you're talking about. So with affiliate marketing and advertising overall, those are obviously big drivers. How would you go about, I guess, let's say someone that doesn't have a blog, or I'm wondering how to ask about this. How would you go about, if you had to start from scratch, starting up those kind of income sources? Because obviously, I've had a experience with this myself with review content, as you referenced with 10,000, where that's become a strong, commission and affiliate-based income source for me. And I think review content specifically on YouTube has a big draw. So I guess what is your advice or thoughts on building up those as income sources, either from scratch, or how can somebody start to leverage those if they aren't already?
I think affiliate is one of the best places to start if you don't have an audience yet and you don't have a ton of money.
Yeah.
Because you can join affiliate programs basically as a total beginner, and almost anybody can create, affiliate content like a product review, because we're all using products every day and we're all qualified to review the stuff that we use.
Yeah.
So affiliate's a really good place to start. With ad revenue, I love, display ads. People kind of think display ads are dead because anybody under 50 probably doesn't even see them anymore. We're just kind of blind to them. But display ads, banner ads on websites bring in a ton of money. And the thing is with those, to really make meaningful money from ads, you have to have at least, say, 25,000 page views a month. Once you get over 100,000, you really have access to the premium ad networks that pay a lot more. So you basically need some traffic to make money off ads. Affiliate, you can start with zero traffic.
Yeah.
So I would say, though, that from my experience, YouTube is a little tougher with affiliate, because to make money off of affiliate marketing, people usually need to click on your link.
Yeah.
Sometimes some brands have a unique discount code that they can use, but on YouTube, no one clicks on links. No one goes in the description and clicks on links. So a website, in my opinion, is a much better platform for affiliate content.
So how do you go about, because I noticed a big chunk of the affiliate was Amazon affiliation, right? How do you is most of that from the website like link clicks or yeah, I mean, because it seems like most affiliates, like you said, are link based or they could be code based. So I guess where do you find the most success with that?
Yeah, it's pretty much all websites. So if you just look at all of the affiliate revenue, about 15% comes from YouTube.
Okay.
And that's max. Like some months it's way less. So pretty much the website. If you think about it, like basically how affiliate marketing works is when you're going to buy something, say you're going to buy a new pair of headphones, you Google
it.
Best headphones, you know?
Yeah.
And sure, Google's going to show you some ads, some shopping results, maybe a couple videos. For the most part, though, you're going to see a list of websites. 15 best headphones 2022, you know?
Yeah.
And you want to be that website that shows up. And if you are, and someone clicks on your link and buys something, you get a commission.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And I do feel like, you know, my pitch always was, you know, of course my whatever brand reviews are doing really well commission-wise, because who looks up review videos? People that are trying to get convinced to make the purchase, pretty much, you know, or they're in the process of deciding what to purchase. So you're already in like a good position, a favorable position to make a sale, rather than trying to do like a cold sale in a sense. But it makes sense how a website would A, pop up kind of faster than a video, and B, a lot of times, I'm sure you're this way as a consumer as well, sometimes you don't want to watch a video. You know, you kind of just want to get straight to the point. And if you're just looking for the top running shoe for a marathon, or top, you know, like you mentioned, headphones or something like that, you're just going to click the link, go to the first, you know, oh, what's number one, scroll down there, click the link, and yeah, make that purchase. So that makes complete sense. So another big change since, you know, we last spoke was you becoming a father. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit and see, you know, how is your intentions, your behaviors, and like your purpose in life, I guess, change, and perspective on things change since the birth of your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge change. You know, I can't really overstate how big of a change it is.
Yeah.
I would say it's hard to explain. I would say after having a daughter, she's 13 months now, it's not something I would like if someone's on the fence, like I would say, like, you definitely have to do it, you know, because it's such a big change that I wouldn't blame anybody for not wanting to do it. I'm really happy, you know. I think it's kind of like you experience these highs that you just can't experience, you know, if you don't have a kid. It's also some of the lowest lows, and they can happen in the same day. So it's like, it's wild. I'd say like from kind of like a, I don't know, like a personal development or like productivity perspective, like you just have way less time and you sleep less. And so a lot of the stuff that's like not essential kind of just falls off. And, you know, for me, it's been, I focus when I have work time, I'm doing the stuff that has to get done. And I've gotten a little better at delegating and like letting things go that I don't really have to pay attention to or work on. Maybe letting some content, you know, get published that I'm not 100% happy with, you know, it's a B plus, and that's good enough. And then I would say that applies to everything, like even with like fitness and stuff, like you just don't have as much time. So, you have to make it count, you know, when you do get to the gym. So yeah, it definitely has like a focusing, I guess, effect on your life. And at the same time, there's a lot of, you know, moments in the day where you just can't optimize because you have a baby, you know, and so you just have to sit and watch them, or like and as someone who's kind of been into like personal development and entrepreneurship and stuff, like it goes against.
Does it almost force you to be more present and less multitasky? And is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can fight it, you know, you can fight it and not be present and be on your phone and be, but yeah, it is kind of fun just to like, I don't know, sit on the ground and like see the world through a baby's eyes for a little while. Yeah.
You know? Well, I think that's the, you know, you don't sound like this parent, so I don't feel bad saying this, is that you hate to see the parent at the park that doesn't pay attention to their kid at all, that's just on their phone the entire time, right? Or, you know, I'm sure your parents were like this, like mine. Like if you go to a restaurant, you know, they gave you the little crayons and you're coloring your either brother or sibling or your parent is coloring with you and they're talking, engaging with you. And nowadays, a lot of times, kids are just given tablets right at dinner just to distract them, and such. And there's just not that level of interaction. I think it goes both ways. It obviously benefits the child, but I think it also benefits you as well, as just being present, like you mentioned, seeing the world through the lens of a child. And it's beautiful how it connects, honestly, to what you do, because one emphasis that I've spoken a lot about to my wife when we talk about having kids in the future is I'm like busting my balls now to try and have enough financial stability and job stability to where I can be present and be with my kid as much as possible. Like, I don't want to miss moments. I want to be there as much as possible. I don't want to be stuck at work all the time. I want to have the flexibility that entrepreneurship gives you, the flexibility that you mentioned that like quote unquote 4-hour work week gives you. Understand and make the effort to delegate things that I can delegate so that I can be as involved, as present as I can with my kid. And I think that's what the power of not just entrepreneurship, but passive income kind of gives you. So I guess how much have you like appreciated having that ability because of the way you've set up your life? And, you can kind of compare that to, I'm sure, either siblings or other people that, don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, honestly, I can't imagine doing this with like a more traditional work life.
Yeah.
It's because that was kind of my thesis too. Like, in my maybe early 30s, I was like, I just want to work really hard now and have a lot of time freedom and enough money that, it's going to be a little easier to be a parent, and it's not going to be it's going to be stressful no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's been true, man. Like, it's been great. Like, I'm with her every morning. I pick her up every day, from daycare at like 2 or 3. So like, I'm not, you don't have to wait till 5 or 6. I go to the gym during the day, like during the work day. So I love this lifestyle, of having a business that's relatively passive. There's no such thing as like, true passive income is, I don't know, stocks, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's been incredible. And yeah, I have to remember that sometimes, because I think it's like, it's tempting just to kind of like try to ladder up all the time. And like, that usually means more money, but, this is already like priceless. Like, I wouldn't trade this kind of version of work life for anything.
Yeah. Well, I love the perspective, and I've heard it described in a million different ways, but like the idea of like, okay, like what at the end of the day, at bottom, like what is this money supposed to give you, right? And it's supposed to give you not just, these material things, but to give you time, to give you more flexibility, to give you more freedom. And so, whether it's, $60,000 a year, whether it's $1 million a year, whatever can give you that flexibility, depending on your comforts or standards of living, and your budget. The more you can have that present time to do the things you want to do with the people you love, to have those kind of freedoms. That's kind of what it's all about. It's not always about, like you said, moving up the ladder. You can still pursue that, but also have the other perception to understand, what you've afforded yourself, right?
Right. Yeah, because you can be an entrepreneur and have access to all the freedom, but still be kind of addicted to the hustle and not pay attention to your kids. You know what I mean? So
100%.
And that's one thing I'm kind of thinking a lot about these days, is like, how much is enough, and like, when is it time to turn the page or do something else or take some chips off the table. Because I don't need like hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't need tens of millions. Like, I just want enough to kind of take the pressure off.
Yeah. Well, you walked right into my like final question was, what are those like next steps that you're thinking about right now? I guess what's upcoming, and what are kind of like your future, I guess, goals that you have set up for your businesses, or just life in general, as you mentioned, now raising a daughter.
Yeah, one thing I'm thinking about a lot lately is a potential exit from at least parts of my business. So, you can think about it as like digital real estate. Like, I have these 2 websites, a YouTube channel, some social media, and some of those assets are sellable. And websites in particular are an increasingly popular like asset class. And even people who aren't really into like online marketing or content are getting involved in the purchasing of websites as a business or as an income stream. So I've heard from many potential buyers over the last couple of years, and it's something I'm thinking about. I didn't start The Modest Man with the intention to sell it. I'm still passionate about it and the subject matter. I have a good team, but for the right buyer and the right price, I would definitely be interested in an exit, and I think it'd be helpful because it take chips off the table, sort of build up the nest egg a little bit, and then also just free up some brain space to maybe do something else, because I've been doing it for a long time and I don't want to do it forever. So
well, very different aspect, smaller scale, shorter term thing. But that's how it was with the gym. It's funny, I started the gym basically like a few months after we spoke, and then only like 6 months ago I actually like sold it. And a lot of selling it was, I would still be happy doing it. It was still something I enjoyed, still a passion I had. But like you mentioned, I needed to switch things up. I needed a break and more freedom to explore other passions I had, whether it be this podcast, whether it be more content creation overall. I just didn't have the time for that. I was doing, my freelance work during the day, and then in between the day as well, and before and after, I was managing the gym, and it was just soaking up all my time. And although I enjoyed it, I just was like, where's this going? Where eventually am I going? So I definitely can resonate with where you're coming from a bit.
Yeah, I think it's tough to know when to transition sometimes, but I don't know. Looking back, if I think about times when I've left a job or a relationship or whatever, I've never really looked back and think, oh, I left too soon or I transitioned too soon. It's usually like, I stayed a little bit too long, you know? So I think I'm kind of ready, but I want to do it the right way, and kind of optimize it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you again coming on, and I guess you have a bunch of different ways people could find you, but which ones do you want to push the most of where people can find you?
Yeah, if you go, I kind of keep a list of what I'm up to just at brockmcgoff.com, so you can just go there and find my stuff.
Makes it easy. Also, it's like the past few people that I've had on, and a podcast I was on a few days ago asked me the same thing. It's easy when you have a name you can just Google and everything comes up. Yeah. I feel like you've got that, I got that. So maybe it's the virtue of being named Brock. So maybe that's it.
That's right. Yeah. Name your kids Brock.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I appreciate it again. And if you guys, found this interesting, definitely give Brock a follow his content, things like that. Share the podcast, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.